You're listening to Policy Currents, a weekly podcast from RAND. I'm Evan Banks.
And I'm Deanna Lee. Every Friday, we bring you new insights from RAND's latest research and commentary. It's November 1st.
The world faces many risks that are consequential enough to significantly harm or set back human civilization. Some even raise the specter of human extinction. What exactly are these risks, and how can they be monitored, measured, and mitigated? A new RAND report tackles these sobering questions. The authors examine 6 threats and hazards, risks posed by artificial intelligence, asteroid and comet impacts, sudden and severe changes to the climate, nuclear war, severe pandemics, and supervolcanoes. That is, volcanoes that produce massive, explosive eruptions on a scale never experienced by modern humans. The researchers find that, overall, global catastrophic risk has been increasing in recent years, and it appears likely to increase in the coming decade. Of course, these threats and hazards are not all the same. For supervolcanoes and asteroid and comet strikes, risk should remain constant or even decrease in the next decade. But for the remaining threats and hazards, the risk appears to be increasing because of human activities. And for AI, the uncertainties are large enough that it's hard to determine the extent or magnitude of changes in risk with any confidence. The authors also identify some key factors affecting risk levels. These include the rate and nature of technological change, the maturity of global governance and coordination, failure to advance human development, which in turn threatens the stability of society, and interactions among the threats and hazards themselves. So, how should humanity respond? Our researchers emphasize the need for an approach to risk management that matches the complex nature of these threats, the uncertainties that surround them, and the ways they interact. Only continued attention, inquiry, and action will ensure that society is able to protect human civilization, the authors write, and build a more resilient and prepared society should a global catastrophe occur.
The capabilities of the commercial company SpaceX have become key to supporting U.S. military objectives. For example, the Pentagon hopes that SpaceX satellites will drastically improve connectivity in remote environments. Networked satellites from Starlink, a SpaceX subsidiary, could help the military spot targets anywhere in the world. And SpaceX's Falcon rockets have launched multiple U.S. Space Force missions. But under CEO Elon Musk, SpaceX has taken unpredictable actions that can affect geopolitical events. This raises national security concerns that a key defense contractor could be manipulated by the impulses of its leadership. For instance, SpaceX initially made its Starlink communications available to Ukrainian forces fighting Russia. But the company eventually sought to deny Ukraine access to Starlink, with Musk first demanding that the Pentagon foot the bill, and later claiming that restoring functionality might escalate the conflict into a world war. According to RAND's Douglas Young, such unpredictability runs counter to how the government and key allies typically like their contractors: boring and reliable. An unreliable vendor can affect the ability of federal agencies to deploy technologies for critical services, such as responding to disasters or supplying military forces. And mercurial leadership, of course, can also have negative effects within an organization. If a tech vendor has an unhappy or unstable workforce, or if it can't retain talent, then it likely can't deliver the stability that governments need. Fortunately, Young says, there's plenty that can still be done to ensure productive partnerships between government and the industries that deliver innovative technologies. To start, government agencies should avoid over-reliance on any single vendor. Encouraging competition among existing vendors, and new ones, would allow the government to select among those that could reliably deliver. This would help the government avoid being tethered to a single vendor. And leaders in both government and industry should acknowledge that what's good for workers is also good for organizations. They should ensure a productive, safe environment and prioritize the health, skills, and needs of their workforce. After all, Young says, devaluing or even ignoring people's basic needs comes at a cost, not just to employees of tech companies, but to all of society.
Hurricanes Helene and Milton hit the southeastern U.S. within 2 weeks of one another. These back-to-back disasters sparked conspiracy theories about government-created weather events via geoengineering, the large-scale intentional manipulation of the Earth's processes to modify weather. These theories are false. There is no evidence that any entity created the storms. But according to RAND's Emi Yonakura, the risks associated with geoengineering are real. Major actors, including the United States, China, and the United Kingdom, have experimented with weather modification in the past. The U.S. government experimented on and off with cloud seeding beginning in 1947, with the aim of diminishing hurricanes and other weather events. And more recently, China has reportedly used cloud seeding to protect agriculture and modify weather in advance of public events, including the 2008 Olympics. However, hostile use of environmental modification has been banned globally for decades. Currently, scientists do continue to study a range of geoengineering approaches that are largely aimed at addressing the accelerating effects of climate change. These include stratospheric aerosol injection to reflect sunlight, large-scale reforestation, and direct air carbon capture and storage. While most of these technologies are in their infancy and have yet to be adopted by a major global actor, they come with real environmental risks. For example, large-scale reforestation could lead to water pollution and nutrient runoff, as well as ecosystem disruption. And direct air carbon capture and storage could create large energy and water demands or potentially lead to the release of toxic chemicals. Yet another risk, geoengineering could have geopolitical implications. For example, by creating disagreement between states on whether or not to implement geoengineering, or by causing territorial disputes related to large-scale land or resource needs. All of this shows that even though conspiracy theories about the recent hurricanes are indeed false, they ironically point to the open risk that geoengineering may still pose.
Tuesday is Election Day. Over the last several months, Americans have experienced a barrage of election news, heated social media debates, and deep uncertainty about the outcome. This climate can make it difficult to relax, let alone sleep. The more you dwell on political anxieties, the harder it becomes to wind down, and negative emotions further exacerbate the problem. It's a vicious cycle of restless nights. Poor sleep increases stress, and stress leads to poorer sleep. RAND researcher and sleep expert Wendy Troxell has some tips. If you find yourself scrolling through social media posts late into the night, try setting limits on TV or social media consumption in the hours before bedtime. And if politics have you riled up, then civic participation can help. Whether you volunteer, canvass, or simply engage in constructive discussions, actively taking part in democracy can alleviate feelings of helplessness and stress, supporting your mental health and promoting a more restful night's sleep. And in turn, evidence suggests that getting a good night of sleep can make you a kinder, more altruistic person. A UC Berkeley study found that nearly 80% of participants reported a decreased desire to help others after a sleepless night, compared with when they got a good night's sleep. Also, remember that truly healthy sleep requires consistency. So while you may be tempted to sleep in after watching election returns into the wee hours, maintaining regular wake-up times is essential. Your body thrives on routine, and a stable schedule helps regulate your internal clock, making sleep more restorative. So, if you're eligible to take part in the election, then make a plan to vote. And whether you're eligible to vote or not, make a plan for healthy sleep as we enter the home stretch and face what could be a tense, drawn-out vote-counting process. As Troxell says, Whatever's coming, let's face it, well-rested.
That's it for today's episode. If you'd like to learn more about what we discussed, check out the show notes at rand.org/podcast. We're off next week, but we'll be back in your feeds on November 15th. RAND is a nonprofit, nonpartisan institution that helps improve policy and decision-making through research and analysis.